What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, since I've been making a lot of videos based on the show Dexter, a lot of people in the comments have also been asking me to make a video on the books as well, because the books are pretty different from the show that we all know and love. And since season 1 of the show is based on the novel Darkly Dreaming Dexter, I decided, hey, let me give you the 5 biggest differences between the show and the books that I personally find the most interesting. Now, obviously, there's spoiler alerts ahead for both the show and the books, so yeah, but without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So the first biggest difference that really caught my eye, in my opinion, and I think is one of the biggest and most devastating changes, is that Brian Moser's storyline lasts longer in the books, like until the final novel in the book series. And this actually genuinely hurt me. And if you didn't know, I love Bonnie, and every time I bring that character up, I always complain about how the show killed him off too early, and that he should have been a character for so many more seasons. But first, let me explain to you how he survived in the book. So I'm sure all of you remember that in the show when Brian tried to sacrifice Dexter's stepsister Deborah, and Dexter didn't like that at all because he tried to kill Deb, so he had to get rid of Brian so she would be safe inevitably. And it was also tough for Dexter to kill Brian. He didn't want to, but he had to ensure Deborah's safety. But in the books, it's literally the complete opposite. Maria is actually the one to die. So if I had to put this in the show terms, in season 1, Maria would die and Brian would still be alive. So instead of Deborah dying on the table, Dexter offers Maria as a sacrifice in order to save Deb, because Brian still wanted to kill Deb in the books, so he had to sacrifice Maria instead. And just that one difference right there makes the book sound 10 times better based off of that one scenario, because one, we wouldn't have LaGuerta's annoying character to watch for an entire 7 more seasons with. We would instead get Brian for 7 more seasons. So yeah, that was totally insane to me, and I feel like that deserves the #1 spot, because who doesn't like Bonnie? And it sucks because the show is very good just how it is, but then when you read the books, there's some opportunities that could have been used and you're like, wow, it could have been spectacular. Number 2, Dexter was actually so much more brutal in the books, with like 0 emotions at all, like a literal picture perfect depiction of a psychopathic serial killer. And as we all know, in the show, Dexter does have some kind of emotion. This is kind of shown later throughout the seasons, and Dexter himself even wishes that he had feelings too. But in the books, he's a cold-hearted killer with no remorse for humankind and has 0 empathy. Now, low-key, I'm kind of glad that they didn't take this approach in the show. Why? Well, because I feel like the reason why is because Dexter from the show was relatable in a way. Besides the killing and all that, it was him kind of trying to fit in life. With his social awkwardness and his quirks, it showed a side of him that most people can relate to, as in he feels more human. Like if we got Dexter as a emotionless demon in the show, I feel like the character just wouldn't be remembered as much. Like I think it's very essential to relate to the main character in film or even books, or literally any type of motion picture or anything that has a story to it. And I feel like that's one of the main reasons the show took off more than the novels, because Dexter, the main character, just had so much more to offer rather than just simply being a serial killer. Number 3. Dexter's dark passenger in the novels is described as a spiritual creature, kind of like a demon-like entity that Dexter can actually see. Now, as we know in the show, the dark passenger is basically just Dexter's lust to kill. It's like an itch in the back of his mind that can be scratched when he kills people. Now, this is another gigantic difference, because this confirms that the novel has some supernatural element in it, whereas the show is kind of way more realistic. Now, in my opinion, I think this is pretty badass. Like, you mean to tell me that Dexter actually interacts with his dark passenger and can see him, kind of just like he can see Harry? I mean, to me, that's pretty cool, and would have been cool to see if the show didn't take the realistic approach. But yeah, since they did take the realistic approach, there's really no way to incorporate a demon into the show. But the book really does a cool job of this, in my opinion. Number 4. Astor and Cody have dark passengers as well. And when Dexter finds out this, he actually teaches them the code that Harry gave him so, they can operate without getting caught. And this dead blew my mind, because this is such a cool concept. Like, I might get a little bit of hate for saying this, but I wish this was kind of in the show as well. I mean, as we all know, after seasons 4 to 5, we barely saw the kids really at all. And to be honest, Astor and Cody were really good characters, and it was a shame that they got less screen time because Rita died. Like right after season 5 where Astor and Cody found out that Rita died, like that's where they could develop their dark passengers, like feeling anger, because essentially they were born in blood too. And throughout season 5 onwards, Dexter would be teaching them the code. I feel like that would be pretty fire. Pretty unpopular opinion, but hey, I think it's pretty cool. Number 5. James Doakes' death is way more brutal in the novel. And when I read this, I kid you not, I genuinely felt a pit in my stomach. Like when I mean his death is brutal, I mean it's gruesome. Something that definitely wouldn't have happened in the show, like at all. So in the book, there's a serial killer called Dr. Danko who mutilates Doakes, keeping him alive with only the parts of him that are essential for life. Now you might say, didn't Biney do that to Tony Tucci, where he kept him alive by cutting off his body parts? And yes, he did too, but Dr. Danko was much more disgusting. Like he cut out James's tongue and limbs, tortured him so hard that Doakes literally begged to kill him to stop the pain. Now that's some pretty screwed up shit. Like Doakes is ex-military, so they know how to block out pain to the best of their ability when tortured to not give out information. So seeing Doakes beg for death means that this was some nasty torture. And I can't even believe that my king went out like that in the books. Heart-wrenching. And I'm so glad they didn't include this as a possibility of Doakes dying. So yeah, this is my top 5 crazy differences from the book and show. What are yours? Also, here's an honorable mention. So in the second novel of Dexter, Dearly Devoted Dexter, Lila is not in this book at all. Like there's no character that even resembles Lila's character at all. Like sometimes in the show and the book, they'll have same correlating characters, but they won't be under the same names as you would see them in the show or as you would see them in the book. And as we all know, Lila is in the second season, but in the second book, there's literally no idea of Lila ever being in the world of Dexter at all. So I know a lot of people will be hyped about that and be like, wait, so why didn't they add this to season 2? Because a lot of people hate the character Lila West. But I personally kind of like the character Lila West. You know what I'm saying? Because I look at it like this. When I watch a show, I want to be able to feel something. And Lila kind of made me feel angry towards the character. Which literally, the character made a lot of people mad because a lot of people don't like the character. Like the actress did a phenomenal job of portraying Lila West. And that's why the character is so good, because the character made all of us convey an emotion. Like we were emotionally attached to this show. That's what they were trying to do. So yeah, that's my reasoning for why I think Lila was a great character.